So good afternoon. Today we are here with Carolyn, and she is going to take us through market content writing. So over to you, Carolyn.
Okay, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate this opportunity. This is my first ever presentation on video, as I am myself adapting to the changing times for my own marketing, and it's been awesome being a member of NAWBO in general and the communications committee, and I appreciate Elizabeth as well as Didem Aturk, the chair of the communications committee, and everyone else, and I'm glad to be here with you guys. So to briefly introduce myself, I started my business about 4.5 years ago as an independent marketing content writer and strategist. I focus on helping businesses and nonprofits get on the map through compelling communications. And so I'm going to talk today about helping you guys with your businesses about marketing content writing. And I'm going to go through some slides and then open it up for more interaction to hear your ideas and your challenges and see if we can help you guys refine your messages and your writing. So my contact info is up on screen here. And I'll show it again at the end. And one more thing, before I mentioned that I started my business a few years ago. Before that, I worked in-house as a marketer and proposal writer at a few different engineering and architecture firms. And over the past 15+ years, I worked on a lot of journalism, as well as worked directly with businesses to promote and nonprofits to promote their messages to win projects for proposals and just generally promoting themselves. Okay, so having said that, without further ado, why are we here? We're here because you all have awesome businesses. You're all awesome, but how can you communicate about your work in a compelling way for your target audience? Okay, so our goals include talking about marketing content writing and strategy for compelling communications to help you in your business. We're going to write about what's unique about you guys, your individual experiences and services, and how you're different from your competition. So just to start off, what is good writing about? So I just wrote down a few things that people often think of when they think about good writing, like grammar, sentence structure, organization, flow, conciseness. Overall, I see it as including key points without unnecessary words, so that healthy balance, not being too short, not being too long, and most importantly, enable a quick understanding of your message that people will remember. Okay, but good writing is also about what you want to say, who you're talking to, what you want others to know and remember about you, using the right words and the right way for your target audience, and being consistent, but also being able to adjust technical terms and other keywords based on who will read it. So for example, I'm going to get more into this later, but for example, I mentioned I worked with a lot of engineers, and a lot of engineers, for them, technical language is very important, getting into the technical systems and complexities and nuances. But then for other people, when they're trying to explain it to a government agency or an end user, someone who's a non-engineer, it might be phrased differently while still getting the same point across, but maybe use some different words to make it more understandable for that target audience. So what I wrote here, the examples, I'm going to come back to this later and show this again during the workshop portion later on. But some examples to get you guys to start thinking are thinking about filling in the blanks on these sentences like this. So I came up with basically a few short sentences that would universally apply to pretty much anyone or almost anyone. So for example, I am passionate about blank because of blank. So for example, I am passionate about communications because of my strong belief that it's important to help people help themselves and grow their organizations. Okay, here I reference a specific number of years of experience, but you guys can change that as you see fit. Because of our 15 years of experience leading blank, whatever field you work in, you're well qualified to help you, as in you and the target audience, the client you're trying to reach. And then another one is about, goes more into a specific project and how your leadership and expertise on blank, whatever project it was, what did it result in? So what is something specific you worked on? What did it result in? How did it make things better for person A, person B, certain organization? So those are some types of things that I like to think about when I'm helping people organize their writing. Think about what are some unique things from their background and what are some general things and general themes that they've come across throughout their career, and then examples about their leadership and expertise and results. Okay, so let's, and I'm gonna just briefly address some themes and tie that in from Didem gave a presentation a couple weeks ago about value proposition and branding, which was an awesome overview for overall planning marketing. So quick recap of that. So a value proposition is a promise of the value that you are delivering, whether it's a product or a service. What is your business all about? And what's the reason they should buy from you and not from your competitor? So for example, Didem used this great example about the special sauce factor. So, so that's something to think about. And also just knowing your customers as you develop your content and your branding. Didem talked a lot also about personas, and I think that's super important, thinking about the specifics of who you want to reach, what they need help with. So I wrote some examples here. A lot of things that I like to think about are, for my writing business, I mentioned I help people who hate writing, or people who want to save the time. They want to work on other things. They don't want to have to worry about the writing. So another example can be that if you're a business doing inspections of safety systems, you may have expertise as an engineer knowing all about the safety systems that would work in a building. And you may be working with a government agency person who might not know as much about that. They're just overall trying to manage the operations of the agency. So they need an expert like you who knows those technicalities. So thinking about something like that, the specifics of how you're going to help those people and what you know that they don't know and what they need. So, and that also relates to competitive analysis and differentiators. So how are you going to do it better than your competition? One thing that that helped me in my business as I evolved is I realized a lot of writers and marketers, they don't focus on proposals, but I love working on proposals, and it's a key thing for my business and my experience. So I thought about things like that I focus on that other people might not focus on. But at the same time, what do I enjoy doing the most as well? Okay, so so I also, there's a thing that I picked up in a workshop a few years ago that someone else did that stuck with me, and I adapted everything. It's called the game plan model. And GAME is an acronym for goals, audience, message, and engagement, which I've summarized here. And I'm happy to go more in depth about that during the Q&A if you guys want. So in a nutshell, I'm talking about present and future. Think about your goals and audience as you develop your message and engagement content. So as I write here, I'll just quickly go over that. I'm talking about goals, what you're trying to achieve, and why. I think the why is very important also to address concisely, but really show why you're different. The audience I talked about a lot before, current and also future, prospective future clients, who you're working with now, but also who do you really want to reach? And that might be different, and that's okay. You might be working with a certain type of client now, and you might want to reach somebody else. So, so those types of things can shape what you're saying, what you're writing, or what you're speaking about, as well as the engagement strategy, how you're seeing it, how you're presenting it. So earlier, some of you guys were talking about video, other people were talking about graphic design and podcasts, and those are super awesome and important for your engagement strategy, for where your audience is and what you enjoy and what's going to resonate, what format's going to resonate most for whatever you're saying. Okay, so next up, I prepared some notes about broad versus niche and evolution of your game plan. So evolution is a key word here in how I'm going over a lot of stuff quickly here. Getting started. This is a key theme that I like to mention to everyone, getting started and just getting started writing down some keywords relevant for your work is super important, and evolution and knowing that it's going to evolve as you evolve, as the market evolves, that is super important. So I want to emphasize that to start. Yeah, so writing down keywords, considering what's going to help your target audience learn about your business. I put something here about brain dumps and brainstorms are okay to get started. So it's okay to just say, I'm going to write down every word that comes to mind when I'm thinking about my business. What have other people said about me? What are common things in the marketplace that is said about graphic design, for, to use an example from before, to what are people saying? What are the right words that are important for what I'm doing, for what people are talking about in my industry? So it's okay, just write down as much as you can think of, and take your time with it. But at a certain time, also just say, it's okay, I have enough initial stuff, I'm going to narrow it down, and then just do your best to highlight what's the most important, and figure out, what's going to be in your tier 1 top message if you only have 30 seconds. And then what are you going to narrow, what are you going to go into depth about more if you happen to have more time? So so for example, if you have a broad audience, you can think about everyone that you want to reach, but it doesn't literally have to include everyone. So it's okay, focus on a few target markets for your ideal future clients, and that can help with the narrowing. Even though I wrote broad, that can also help with the narrowing down process. So if you start thinking about everything you're thinking about, everything. So I'm doing a circle, I talk with my hands sometimes. One thing I'm trying to learn about on video as well. So you start off with the big circle, and then as you narrow it down, you can think about, for example, I want to reach everyone in the professional services industry. And then think about more specifically, okay, I want to reach architects and engineers, and think about what types of words are they using, what's their usual language, and how are you going to write about those, write the right content for those people. So I think it's a healthy combination of the keywords you like to use, and also what are they already using, what are they already talking about, and can you incorporate their usual language into what you're saying? So that's all about targeting. That, again, we can go more in depth on the Q&A. And that also relates to the niche process. So even more narrowing down, who are you talking to in a specific case? So later on, I'm going to get more into having a broad message and then adapting it for specific purposes. I like to call that templates, and that can help with making writing more efficient, so you don't have to reinvent each time. But in general, with a niche, I see it as often responding to a specific person or company. So I work a lot on proposals. So for example, a request for proposal process that the government agency might have very specific questions that they want a response to. An example is last week, some of you guys may have been on the call with the SBA about the loans. And a lot of that information that they ask for is financial, but there might be some other questions very specifically that they want to know. So I think that's super important if you're responding to something specific like that, or if you see a trend, like if you're working on a bunch of loans or proposals at the same time, you could say, okay, this is something a lot of them are asking. I'm going to save that on file and use it and change it as I need to for each purpose. Okay, excuse me. All right, and answering their specific questions, again, very important. If they don't have any questions, sometimes they might just say, oh, send me your information. So in those cases, I advise what they might ask, a hypothetical, how would match for working together. Okay. Next slide, I just want to transferable experience and skill are important. So obviously this is a time when a lot of us are thinking about that. So thinking thinking and adapt. You may have one thing that you time for your marketing strategy, and then considering what worked from the past, and use language applicable for your new audience. So a couple of days ago, I was on the workshop that Sharon did an awesome job leading about influences and changing your drivers for your strategy for your business overall. And some of us talked about how we focus on helping people, or we focus on technology, and obviously those are things that we're all thinking about right now. Some people may have businesses that have in-person interaction on a regular basis, but we're shifting to online. So, but that doesn't mean that the whole business has to change. It just means certain words and ways you communicate about it might need to change. An example that I wrote down here is from my experience. I wanted to do more work with nonprofits after working on architecture and engineering proposals. So I knew that nonprofits work on grant proposals. So I worked on building on my grant proposal experience, adding nonprofits to my client base, and learning about that new but related transferable skill. Okay. So yeah, so I talked before about templates a little bit. So this is the messaging and engagement part. So what I just talked about is more overall thinking about the goals and the audience. And at a certain point, I like to call it the just right method. And I came up with it in college. I remember I used to write these papers, and back about 20 years ago, and there were so many books and so many things. And now, of course, we have so much information available to us also, mainly online, but also still in books. And I would have so much information, but at a certain point I said, okay, I gotta just start writing. So I called it the just right method with a W. That's part of the message and engagement and finalizing your content. And at a certain point, just working on the deliverable, you absolutely have to submit. And that may not be a hard deadline. That might be a proposal that government or SBA or whoever needs from you, but it can also just be, you need to finalize your website or your podcast because you know that's important to take the next step in your business. So it might be an internal deadline or it might be an external deadline. So I think making a template is important, confirming what needs to be consistent no matter what you're saying. So for example, if you're a nonprofit with a mission statement, that's obviously super important. Have certain keywords like who you're helping and what are your core services for a business. That's also important, of course. So those are the types of must-have messaging that should be in everything. But then certain things can be edited and adapted for specific purposes. Word count and the specific questions that a proposal or prospective client might ask, those are things that I'm talking about. Sometimes certain words can be eliminated if you don't have enough space for all of them. And in other cases, some people might want to see a few paragraphs, some people might want to see one sentence. So part of the challenge is figuring out whether the words have to be there and whether the words that you can take out or change if you need to. Yeah, so it's all about choosing what's right for you in general, but also in a specific instance. And I wrote down some specific different types of content. There's definitely not a one-size-fits-all approach. I think templates, like I said, are important, but it's also good to be able to adapt them quickly for your audience. So I wrote a bunch of examples, not to be overwhelming, but just to emphasize that there really are a lot of things that can work in different situations. So like on proposals, for example, there are cover letters and email summaries that are on the shorter ends of things and firm profiles. And then there could be longer staff resumes and project experience sheets, technical scopes of work, fees, forms, and other things of varying length. So, so for example, different things might work for different audiences. Same thing with articles and blogs and print or online materials. In some cases, it may work to have what you're writing in a specific publication, like a trade magazine or on a niche targeted social media. For some people who love images, Instagram is awesome for their business and they want to have a few words and a lot of pictures. That is the most effective strategy for some people. Other people, podcasts might work. Other people, a longer blog might work. For some people, having it on the website is the right way to do it, and I'll link to that, put the link to your website in other places. So those are some examples. So yeah, so that's the brief overview that I wanted to share with you guys about the importance and the key things that I think are important when thinking about content writing and messaging and what you're saying. So I would say now it's workshop time that I'm going to officially say. So some things that I'd like for you guys to think about if you choose to accept it, is just to start writing down what's unique about you, your experience, services for yourself and your business, whether you are a sole proprietor or whether you have a small team or a large team, whatever applies to you, and also how you're different from your competition. Are there services that you do that others don't do, or that is more rare in the industry that can help you stand out? I mentioned before my example about how I focused a lot on proposals, but I noticed a lot of other people didn't. So that's part of the research process. I'm not expecting people are going to just have answers right now. But these are just things to start thinking about, and I'm happy to help you guys brainstorm as we have this time here. So I'm going to just, I think, yeah, this is the last slide. Okay. So I just put back on screen so you guys can have that to start thinking about. But what you want to say, who you're talking to. I'm just going to quickly flip. I prepared these final takeaways that I'll emphasize again later, that just getting started is super important. And start by writing keywords that are relevant to differentiate yourself, accomplish your goals, then go from there to refine and finalize your messaging content. So I'm really hoping that today will just help you guys as a starting point, or many of you guys obviously have already established your businesses, so you're not officially getting started, but I hope this is a good opportunity to just continue what you're doing and build on it, since the evolution is super important. Whether it's templates or messaging for a specific audience or for a general audience. So I'm gonna put this back on screen about what's unique about you. And Elizabeth, I think I'm good to have people to open it up, and I'm okay if people want to talk through their ideas, or if they want to write it in the chat box. I'm okay either way, and I'm happy to continue a conversation where we can all talk together. If people feel more comfortable with one-on-one follow-up, I'm happy to do that also. I'll put my contact info up on screen later again. And yeah, Elizabeth, I think I'm good if you want to start opening that up again. We can keep this on screen if that works too. And yeah, thank you guys.